I'm Abs, I'm a lead DevOps engineer, and nothing has taught me Linux better than this free terminal game. It's called Over the Wire Bandit. In this video, I'll show you what it is, how it works, and why you should definitely start using it if you're in DevOps or if you're in any tech space. So Bandit is basically a series of command line puzzles, right? When you're learning Linux for the first time, you want to get a practice of these commands. And that's what the Bandit wargame is designed for, is aimed at absolute beginners. And it's actually 34 levels, and the levels obviously increase in difficulty. And essentially, the game is very simple. Because you have levels, you're going from level 0 to level 1. You find the password hidden in that specific file system. So as DevOps engineer, you'd use commands and anything you've learned with Linux. But essentially with Bandit, you get introduced to new commands that you then have to figure out how to use, and especially how to use it to gain access to the next level. So essentially, you have to look for a password within the file system that is then used with SSH to the next level. And I'll show you exactly how it works in this video. So let's go to level 0. All right. So in level 0, the goal of this level is for you to log into the game using SSH. And they've made it very straightforward. They've given us the username and the password. So all we have to do is go to our command line and actually just use the command line to figure this out. Now, for those of you who are new to the field, right, and don't know what command line is, there's actually a website that you can use that will give you the command line that you need. So if you go to this website called Killer Coder, so it's spelled like that, killercoder.com, and they'll give you a playground, right? If I click on playground, it will take me to this page, and all I want is an Ubuntu playground. Ubuntu is just a distribution of Linux, so we can run our commands in the terminal there. So if I click on this, as you can see, it will spin up a playground for us to play with some Linux commands. Now the way to play this game, they've actually told us how to do it. They've told us that to connect to this game, we use SSH, and they've even given us the SSH information. So for those of you who are starting out, I'll show you exactly how to use the SSH command to log into the first level. Okay. So the command goes like this. I'm just gonna, run past this quickly. So let's actually type it out so you know exactly what we're doing. So it's SSH, and they've given us the actual host that we're trying to get into. But because we're trying to get into level 0, right, it will be bandit 0 at the host. So I'm gonna do bandit 0 at, and what we just copied, so Command V or Control V if you're on Windows. And they've also given us the port. So the port is 2220, and the way to do that is by just doing a -P, where P is the flag that we're using to put in the port 2220, and press enter. Now, as you can see, because we're on this playground, it doesn't quite let us log into Bandit or use SSH. So you would have noticed that gave us an error. So all you have to do is just sudo and run the command again. And the way to do that, to run the previous command, we run sudo with an exclamation mark, okay? So for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna type it out again so you know exactly what it looks like. And then press enter, and it'll give you some, so it wants to establish that this IP, that it wants to establish the authenticity of this host. So just say yes and just move on. So now it's asking for the level for bandit 0. If I go back to this page, it says the password is bandit 0. So just type in bandit 0 here. Now for security reasons, it won't actually come up on the screen. So, but it's actually typing. So just type it slowly and it will let you in, and press enter. All right, and now we're actually in. I'm going to do Control L so you can actually see at the top. And there you go. Now we're actually in Bandit 0. So that's the first level. Now the idea is to get from level 0 to level 1, there's certain commands that you have to use, right? The password for the next level is stored in a file called README, located in the home directory. So they've given us all the information we need. We're just looking for the password. So we use these commands that they even tell us to use: ls, cd, cat, file, and so on. So we're going to start with the most simplest one. We're going to do ls, right? And already we see that by listing what's in the current directory, we see README, right? And we know it's the home directory because we have distilled, right? Which basically is the home directory. and we don't know if that's a file or a folder. So what we can do is ls-la. So we're using these two flags, and if I press enter, it shows me everything that's there, and it shows me that readme is actually a file, right, and it's not directory. I know that because the first, this first letter, D or a dash, determines whether it's a file or a folder. D represents directory, and dash is just represents a file, right? By default, everything in Linux file system is a file, except when it's specified, or they specify that it's a directory. Okay, cool. So now we know there's a single readme file. We can do cat, which is basically reading the contents of that file, readme. And if I press enter, there you go. Congratulations on your first steps into the Bandit game. And right at the end, says the password that you're looking for is this. Cool, and we can copy that. And we can exit, so we have to exit this level before we can get into Bandit level 1. So if I do exit, so now we're back to our Ubuntu terminal. And if I run the same command again, so let's do it with sudo. And if I go back to Bandit 0 and change this to Bandit 1, since that's the level we're trying to access, it will ask us for the password, which we copied, right? So we can go to Command V or Control V and press enter. And now we're in level 1. Now again, we do the exact same thing to go from level 1 to level 2. Now to go from level 1 to level 2, the password for the next level is stored in a file called dash, right? Located in the home directory. Again, I can do ls. I can see that there is actually a file called dash. I'm going to try doing cat dash. You'll notice that it starts to trail, right? Because dash could be interpreted as something else. It could be interpreted as it thinks that there's a flag that follows it, right? But we're actually trying to read this file. There's a way to do that, right? Without just keeping everything as it is. If I do Control C, cool. So now we actually want this to be the file that we read. So we have to use the less than sign so that we pass it into the standard input operator. So if we do cat and we do the less than sign and dash, we'll be able to read the file contents. Okay. The idea is, in order to read files that start with a dash, you have to redirect them to standard in. Now this is what we're using for standard input, right? It's just an operator we use to read any file like this, right? Just so it knows it's a file that we're trying to read, and we're not trying to pass in a flag, for example. Yeah. And there you have it. So you have the password for the next level. You can just copy it over. You can exit, and you can do the exact same thing we did before. Change it now to level 2, and then paste the password. And now you're in. Now you're in level 2. Now the idea behind all these puzzles is that you're learning different things. You're learning different concepts. You have things like hidden files and directories. You have permission puzzles, so understanding permissions effectively, like R, W, and X, and you know things like hyphens and the difference between the hyphen and the D. So you know exactly the difference between a file and a directory. You might even search through text, so you would have seen that there are in the later levels you'll come across additional commands like. So if I go to this level, for example, has grep and find. So you might use those commands. You might have, things like archives and compression. So you have, base64, tar, gzip, and all these things. The idea is you encounter different puzzle types that essentially increases your knowledge. The more practice you get, the more you use the man page to actually figure out how to use these commands, the better you become at being really good at Linux. Now, Bandit's incremental design means you learn each command or each level in context. You don't just read about grep, you use it to solve a puzzle. You don't just memorize the alt command, you extract a hidden token with it. And that active problem solving cements your knowledge, which is what has been a game changer for me being a DevOps engineer. And whenever you hear a challenge, you pause and look up that tool. Right? You actually look up that command. The whole idea behind doing that research is all part of the learning, right? You'll fall into a rabbit hole sometimes, and that's fine. But you just need to know when to quit and just move on. But the idea is that research, using Stack Overflow, using online tools, even over the wire, they actually have their own Slack channel which you can join for discussing the levels. And it's actually been around for such a long time. It's not new, so it's been around for a while. So there are probably answers out there, but the idea is you want to figure out without having to look at the answers. All you have to do, spend 30 minutes a day playing these Linux war games or these these levels, Bandit. There are actually other games as well. You can, if you're more advanced, and you want to practice those ones, there are more games out there on over the wire. But the idea is, you just need to practice daily, and the more practice you get every day, the better you become. Like you're getting closer to becoming a Linux pro. So I'll put the link in the description. You can get started right now. All you need is a playground, is a terminal, like the one I've showed you, Killer Coder, and just get your hands dirty. Just start. So make sure to like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this, and you want to find out about more DevOps tips. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.